Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a conversation between two people who sort of work in tech and stuff and also have many other aspirations towards finding meaning in our existence on this planet. And we're just going to talk about stuff. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And what are we talking about this week?
This week we're talking about talent.
So, it's something we have an intuitive idea about and we like talking about a lot. But it's maybe a little bit more complicated than it might first appear.
Yeah, I think.
I wanted to touch on the notion of genius. I wanted to touch on the notion of talent not being the same as skill. Just because you've got talent doesn't mean you can do stuff. You still have to work. And also Britain's Got Talent were filming in the Hammersmith Apollo where my studio is, so they were disrupting my access a little bit last week, which was fun.
Ooh. Did you see any celebrity types?
When I leave on my bike, I kind of go all the way through the whole of the sort of backlot of the Apollo, and I was interrupted by some dancers doing push-ups. They did like 40 push-ups, and I was sat there sort of waiting, going, this is interesting. But I didn't see any celebrities. I just saw a lot of girls in very thick makeup and sort of like gold skirts and all that kind of thing.
All very spangly.
Yeah, it's all very sort of TV ready. But yeah, so I just thought it might be a sort of lighter one after Brexit as well.
True. I didn't think Brexit was particularly heavy.
No, I mean Brexit itself is quite heavy though.
Yeah,
so.
I mean one of the things that I felt after I listened to our draft was that actually what I've come round to, well, I always thought David Cameron should go down in history as a colossal fool. but I think one thing recording the Brexit episode helped me understand is that I don't blame the people who voted for Brexit. I blame the government for its colossal mishandling of the whole thing. So but that's made me feel better.
Okay.
about my fellow country people. And, I think I've come full circle away from believing them to be fools and just believing them to be governed by fools.
Yeah.
We can all get tricked by people in authority.
These people that think they can't fail just don't have any concept of their own ability to fail, just kind of playing with fire and getting... I'm glad David Cameron got metaphorically horribly burnt by that, because it's the idea of one of these privileged elites being made to cry is quite satisfying, if nothing else.
Anyway, so yes, Brexit was a slightly heavier one, which will no doubt get revisited over and over again as our lives unfold.
Yes.
Our country unfolds. Or maybe it'll get rescued. There's a march on the 23rd of June.
Yeah, I can't make it, annoyingly.
Well, I'm pretty sure I can. So,
good.
Though I'm not home yet, so I don't know.
Can I send you a picture of my face to stick on a balloon?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay.
You may. Though balloons, we mustn't let them fly away because they kill creatures.
Oh my God. On Hong Kong Metro, there's these signs about no shiny balloons on the underground. I think they get in there and they freak out drivers and cause problems.
Really?
So you're not allowed to bring shiny kind of helium balloons underground. Of course, balloons are a problem now. Next thing you're going to be telling me jelly's made of ground up animal bones or something.
It is, Michael.
Oh my God, my world. Everything I thought was pure and innocent is evil. Story time.
Uh-oh.
How's your week? Well, it's been 10 days. I'm really happy to see you. It's been another delay.
Yes.
Tell me about, what you've been doing. You're in Derby today?
Derbyshire.
Derbyshire.
I'm looking over the Peak District from my father-in-law's garden in my van. So
Ivanka looks quite radio-ish in her van today. I think this might be the new podcast studio.
It won't work in Croatia because it'll be too hot, but it'll probably work in Brighton. I am, yes, in Derbyshire overlooking Matlock Bath, and it's all very pretty and picturesque and English and green after our Brach Island Mediterranean sort of week. We've driven across Europe again.
How long did that take?
It took us, we arrived here on our third afternoon of travelling.
Epic.
It is epic, but anyway, we enjoyed it. It's actually become much easier now that the child can speak. So you can play with her a bit more and she can say, I'm really hot or thirsty, or rather than just crying, which is, babies to have this problem where they can't communicate what's bothering them. We stopped in some nice places and made it into a bit of a, nice trip. What was a horrible shock was getting off the ferry in Dover. Just traffic. It's really, you go from this sort of pootling across Europe where the only traffic hotspots really around Munich and Stuttgart, the route we take. Yeah. And you can avoid that as well if you want to. So it's actually kind of got more of a road trip, look at the mountains, look at the cows sort of a vibe. And then you get onto the M2 and then the M25, and then some idiot in a white Land Rover nearly killed us. It was incredibly close. I was in the middle lane and a lorry was in the left lane, and he basically snuck between us. And
oh my God.
It was one of those, if either the lorry driver or I had sneezed, he wouldn't have had enough space. It was that sort of, he's just, that's what's horrible about driving. I find that I do love driving. I love the freedom. I love the stop and start. I like, sleeping in the van. I like all that. I enjoy travelling, as we've discussed previously. But the thing that I'm always reminded when you're on these roads, I always think about, if the aliens are looking down and watching us, travelling with these huge, heavy vehicles at speed, 80 miles an hour, more. It's a miracle. Everyone's just not dying left, right and centre.
We can't be biologically adapted to be moving at those speeds, but we, it's kind of amazing.
We do it, and it all seems to, mostly work, apart from the occasional idiot. And I thought driving across Europe, the thing I don't like is the way, if they want you to get out of their way, people drive right up close behind you and sort of try and pressure you. I don't like that, but actually I'll take that versus Land Rover man. I wish I'd got his number plate. I'm minded to contact British Transport Police and tell them what time we crossed the Dartford, because it was just ahead of the Dartford Tunnel. So I'm minded to send them the time and see if they can be bothered to look him up. I'm assuming it's a him. He or she driving their penis extension.
Could have been a vagina extension.
I doubt it. Anyway, so that was good. Anyway, so I've had a lovely week, really. The house is looking good. We did lots of digging. I'm not sure if we'd describe our trip as a holiday.
Digging?
Yeah, we dug over our whole garden.
Oh, right.
That was a very satisfying experience. I love digging. I do like gardening. I'm glad I don't have to live off the land because it's such an unpredictable and difficult thing to do. But I do like a bit of digging.
Well, yeah, that's like I said the other week. I did a bit of digging in our front garden. It was good, just getting all uprooting stuff.
Yes,
it's all kind of like little weeds have started growing over ours already, and I've got to go in again. But
the weeds are just plants where you don't want them. That's all.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to put something in there, but I was quite enjoying just soil where there used to be.
It looks nice.
It's weird. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Who knew?
How's your week?
Oh
no.
No. Well, I had a traffic thing. So I was kind of coming. I had to be at this the Penthouse for this meeting in the early evening. So I ride my bike everywhere, and this particular day I was on my bike and I chose the steep route, which is basically Ladbroke Grove is this big long road that goes up really, 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 really steep and then down really, really, really steep. So I was sort of coming along there. I was kind of a bit preoccupied because this meeting was quite an interesting one to be invited to. I had this moment where it's at the bottom of the hill, there's a set of traffic lights, and I haven't got gears on my bike. It's just a single speed bike. So I don't want to have to start from a standstill at the bottom of the hill. So I sort of like took a bit of a risk at the bottom of the hill, and probably a couple of seconds after the light had changed to red, I kind of went through at top speed so that I had some momentum going up the hill. But that was fine. Got up to the top of the hill, but the horrible thing with Ladbroke Grove is there's a really steep hill, and then the cycle lane is right onto parked cars. So as you're coming down the hill, and if I know of someone who was paralysed by someone opening a car door as they were kind of coming down a hill on a bike. And so as I'm on that road, I'm always kind of thinking about that. But I'm coming down, I'm a little bit preoccupied. I'm sort of coming down the hill, and suddenly this police car comes from behind. So loud, like really, really loud. Comes around on the sort of other side of the road, comes around. I'm a bit sort of distracted by that. And then I'm sort of coming in, trying to get back into the cycle lane, and this car door just opens right in front of me. I've got nowhere to go. I just kind of swerve into it, hit the door with my shoulder, hit the floor, hit my head on the bumper of the car in front. I was back up in a few seconds, swearing at the top of my voice at this driver who had just opened his car door into me. And he just sort of stood there kind of going, like, just like kind of mortified. And as I sort of calmed down, I was like, okay, like we sort of collected my stuff out the road, and he was like, yeah, I'm a cyclist too. I'm so sorry. It's just the police car distracted me for a second. And I think I was probably hugging the cars a bit more than I usually would have been, because, I was kind of conscious of the police car going round. And then, just that like moment. But I just was like, could have been
deaded.
Right. If it weren't for, So he sort of offered to drive me. He let me sort of take a picture of the scene, and like gave me his card so that I could be in touch if anything was a problem. But it like snapped my bag, but my bike seemed okay, and I seemed okay. So
You got away with it. Happy birthday! And did you get back on your bike straight away?
I got back on my bike, I stayed on the pavement, and then it was like through a park the rest of the way, and then down to the Design Museum. Yeah. Where this fly is. So I kind of got in there. It's kind of the client. Is this meeting's going to start. So yeah, I just sort of said what had just happened, and they're like, okay, do you want to drink? I was like, well, I don't drink, so I don't know, like if there's any time drink would have been a good idea. Do you want painkillers?
Yeah.
Well, and then one of them said, oh, I mean, you're in shock right now. Like, you should go and like gather yourself. So they said, well, just go and find a room, any bedroom. So I sort of I'm walking through the pen, I sort of go into the back, I find this big weird bathroom, like, I'm like going, what are these rooms? But yeah, I just kind of like have a little cry, have a little kind of collect myself. Like 10 minutes later, I'm like, because I want to be like, right, I mean, this is nothing to me. So I kind of like gather myself and just go back in. But I survived it. I got away with it.
Wow.
I haven't been to a doctor yet, but I'm sort of waiting for all the bruises. I've just had a huge bruise on my shoulder, a huge bruise on my arm, like a little cut on my leg, and just huge bruises down there, a little bit on the bum, like where I think my bike seat hit me. And just, it was kind of hard to get, I was on painkillers for a few days.
I mean, it's terrifying, it's just terrifying riding a bicycle around. I think it's interesting to me as well that you don't drive, because I think a lot of because I cycle and drive and have sat on the back of a motorbike a lot. And I'm, you watch the road. I mean, we all make mistakes, but I think one thing that a lot of cyclists who don't drive, you don't understand how little you sometimes can see out of a car. I think the Dutch do this thing where they've tried to promote people that when they open their car door, you don't use your hand nearest the door, you use your opposite hand, which forces your whole body to turn. And they call it something like the bike open. Not that I ever do this, but if you watch the...
So you're looking out the window then?
You're forced to look out the window as you open the car door. And they did this thing at Victoria Station one time where you could sit in the cab of a lorry. So it was encouraging cyclists to sit in the driver's seat and see what the driver can't see. Yeah. And it was that kind of like, I think you're so vulnerable on a bicycle. And so many people, there's drivers. I mean, Brighton's got a good set of cycle lanes, but they're not. A lot of them are like that in the road with no division, and drivers often drive as though you're not allowed to be on the road as a cyclist. It's like,
Right.
it's that sort of, and equally cyclists ride like they've got some sort of imaginary bubble around them. And it's like, you're just, I just ride my bike like everyone's trying to kill me. It's like, everyone's an idiot. But
like I never go inside a lorry or like a big vehicle unless it's definitely lights, and the lights are definitely not going to change anytime soon. I'll kind of come round. But I did have to do one of those cycle safety awareness videos because like a couple of years ago I was coming down like alongside Regent's Park, but there's this pedestrian crossing where it's just like if there was no one crossing, there's some traffic lights, and it's like I just didn't want to stop there, but I kind of just didn't even slow down for it because there was no one there, so I just kind of went straight through. But then there was like, I was like, oh shit, there's a policeman on a motorbike right there. So then my sort of instinct was like, I'm going to get away. So I just kind of went fast, and then he kind of came up, he sort of flagged me down and made me stop. And then I think their main way of punishing you is just by being really slow about everything. It's like, all right, I'm just going to get my little PDA out and very slowly try and find this. Obviously I'm in a hurry to get to work. But yeah, like I just sort of said, well, I didn't think there was any danger, but I sort of didn't really
think.
But
did
yeah,
you?
he was like, but then he was like, yeah, well, I was right there. What are you doing? Just kind of like, I sort of say, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like, don't just kind of take the piss when there's a police car.
Yeah.
But then I had to do this. It's like you have to pay for this online course where it simulates.
So you've got
someone
done for
shouting at
dangerous
you.
riding on a bicycle.
I did, yeah.
Good. That's good.
It wasn't dangerous.
Clearly was if you cycled through a pedestrian crossing, Michael.
Well, there was no pedestrians on it.
Yeah, you see, this is part of the problem I have with the cyclists who haven't passed the driving test. It's like, there is a green cross code. I got shouted at by...
I always stop. But that one was like
I know
a really
you do,
like...
Michael, you're a very good boy.
I wait behind traffic. I don't try and like go between every car.
I was cycling along whatever the road is that goes from sort of Holborn-ish to Old Street Roundabout. And it was really raining. Traffic was horrendous. And there was a taxi driver trying to do some sort of U-turn or something. And then there was other traffic piled up. So cars had stopped to let the taxi driver do his turn. So as a cyclist, I stopped to allow him to complete this turn. And a cyclist behind me came up behind, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, participating in the traffic, you moron.
I hate that bit because it's just so many cyclists, and it's just like I don't know what to do sometimes because there's like everyone's like weaving in and out, and it's so dense. You're just like, this is just going to tangle up, and we're all just going to.
The cycle lane isn't separate from the traffic. It's just the part where the cycles go, but you have to be looking at what everyone else is doing. I was like, anyway, I don't get bothered by people shouting at me, especially if they're on a bicycle.
Yeah, I do think that cycle lane is criminal though on Ladbroke Grove, just to have it like right up to the parked cars.
Yeah, that's no good.
On a steep hill. It's like every time I'm just like, don't get paralysed.
But you're 40 and you're alive.
I'm 40, I'm alive. I had a wonderful birthday with just me and Shaz. She'd put some bunting up in the kitchen when I came down. And then she had a sequence of little sort of clue presents for me. And then she took me to the Shard for lunch. And we went up there, had some very nice food. You're sort of telling the waiter in the Shard restaurant, oh, it's my birthday today. And he's like, oh, right. And then you're like, oh, it's everyone's birthday. So good job looking impressed by it being my birthday. But it was 40. But the girl sort of on the next table, it was her 18th. It was like, it's like everyone's special birthday, whatever.
Oh.
A couple of other points I've just got on my list before we get into the topic. I want to stop abusing the word thing and the word like when I'm talking, because I do think they're valid community. I'm not like my grandparents, like, stop mindlessly saying, just say the word. But I do think I think the word thing, like the word, and swearing as well. Like I think like I want to get more precise about my deployment of F words and the thing word and the like word, because I think I've been leaning on it a bit too heavily so far.
I do think you use like too much. When I'm like
whatever.
thinking about like, I don't know if I
Well-
do it, but you do.
Well, part of what lets me give myself permission to do that is Dan Harmon on Harmontown on his podcast, like a while back, he sort of demonstrated, because he's like, he's practically like stuttering. He's like everything, like this, like that. And he demonstrated that he was perfectly capable of flawlessly speaking very articulately with sort of pauses, and it was sort of creepy. And he's like, well, that's why I don't do that. So I'd rather just interject a lot of likes to just kind of make it a bit more,
Well,
is it accessible, a bit less kind of, I don't know, overbearing. So it isn't an unconscious choice, but I think I want to kind of, but in the same way as swearing, in the same way as saying the word thing, I think I'm a little bit too far on the wrong side, but I don't see it as just stupidity to use those sort of modes of speech.
I've got this week and last, an American comedian referred to Ivanka Trump as a "see you next Tuesday."
Okay.
So as a result of this, my Twitter notifications are absolutely filled with people calling me "see you next Tuesday."
Oh no.
So, and I've been debating how to tell the story in my head, because I think so many people get offended. And I think there's a whole topic around, I think we should do an episode about swearing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because I am not averse to swearing at all. And I think people get oversensitive about certain words, that it just gives them too much power, and the wrong kind of power. But that's a different.
Yeah.
But what this did remind me of, because I think the use of the word was probably quite valid.
Can I just clarify, was this the word or was this what you just said?
She used
was
the word.
Was it literally see? Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it wasn't.
yeah. No,
Okay, that's
it's-
you putting in the
No,
being
yeah, I'm
poor
trying
there.
to.
Okay,
I'm trying
fine.
to be soft about it.
Yeah, well, I put a car horn over that word last week.
Oh
so-
yeah, you did, didn't you? But anyway, I mean, I don't have any problem with using the word, but you know, some people
but
get
I think-
offended.
No, it was
But
just
yes,
like it
if
was
you
just
could
too,
beep over,
sometimes it's
if you could beep over that time that I just used it, that would also be cool. Because then I think we should have a special episode in which there is no holds barred swearing.
well, no, I just think if you're going to deploy it, you've got to deploy it effectively.
Yeah. So anyway, so we should definitely do a swearing episode. But what's interesting is that the comedian apologised, and also, which I'm not sure she should have, or that she needed to, and because a lot of this was in reference to the fact that in America land, and many of you may not have such a privileged insight into the news in America as I do, thanks to my Twitter name, this story emerged that a lot of children, when illegal immigrants get deported, their children get seized and records have not been kept. So there's about 1,400 children missing, that people don't know where their kids are. And for that to be happening in modern day America is not cool. So I think calling the current administration and their family is totally valid. So talent.
Well, can I just sorry, I do have one more. Like, if we're light on talent related content, that's fine. But there's just one more thing I just wanted to talk to you specifically, Ivanka, about,
Okay.
because I think you'll be able to see it. So yeah, just this meeting of my life was the thing that was spectacular about it to me was basically this consultant guy came in. The minute he opened his mouth, I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, he's kind of teeing things up in just the right way. And all the things we've kind of learned doing this podcast and all that, could be wrong. That all this kind of persuade. He was doing it all like straight off the bat. And I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. And then when he was very sort of patient and sort of listened to stuff. But then when he had a lot of him and his team had a lot of criticisms, and he just absolutely like no holds barred. He was just like so direct, so critical, but then everyone was just so grateful, and like everyone when he left wanted to give him a hug.
Even though he
right?
told everyone that their project was, he'd picked holes in everything.
It was beyond, it was like absolutely destroyed it. Like, and I just was like, what that, I realized it was like, it's a thing I have, but it's something that I feel bad if it comes out. But it just means that, so when it does come out, it comes out because I'm frustrated and it's uncontrolled. And I just saw what that power was when wielded effectively.
What, the ability
skillfully.
to criticise?
The ability to just say things to people directly and hurt them, basically. But for that to still be a positive. I was like, I need to kind of like learn how to do this. And I think the difference is where I've always been focused on putting the needs of the project above everything else. The difference in his focus was he's putting the needs of the people above everything else, which is a distinction that because I come in and I'm on a project and I just have to assume this is the project. This is the thing. So everything has to be in reference to this. But actually, that's not the truth of what's going on here. We're trying to make everyone successful.
Yeah.
The project is the idea, but if my first thought was like, if that's what it takes to be powerful and successful, then I'll be a failure. If that's what success looks like, I'm happy to be a failure. But then I was just like, why would everyone hug him? What is the difference between what I'm doing? But then I think subconsciously, I have garnered a lot of kind of love from people over the years for my kind of forcefulness and directness, even if it does come out in a sort of unpleasant ways sometimes that I'm guilty of, but it's something that I just sort of discount or don't see very well. But just to see that, I was like, this is something I can learn to control.
It sounds like he was very respectful of the people and their feelings.
But he was respectful, but he didn't mind hurting their feelings.
But we've
right?
talked about the fact that, for example, that we'll take criticism from people we know love us. You know, my brother telling me I'm fat. It's like, it's my brother, he's allowed. But, you know, it's that sort of, and there's no questioning that he's doing it out of love. I mean, we have a good fight every so often, but it's that same thing in a work context of you don't love people in the same way that you love your friends and family, but in a way you do. So the team that you're working with and the people you're working with in that moment, they're the most important people. And so being the most respectful thing you can do to them is tell them the truth. And I think that's one of the reasons, if you look back at, so there's two things out of this. One, looking back at our work at Canonical, there were a lot of people telling the management what they knew the management wanted to hear and not telling them the truth. And those people might have got paid twice as much money as I did. But, you know, at least I tried. And it's that sort of, I don't believe that, and it's fascinating. Human interactions with each other are fascinating, but there's that whole thing of like being afraid of losing your job because you tell somebody in a position of authority that their decision is wrong and why you think it's wrong and the ways in which you can prove that it's wrong, trying to steer them away. I mean, it does sound, you know, if this person is being brought in as an external consultant, you have a lot more power. As well. I don't know if this was going to sound like a boastful story now in the context of what you just said, but I bumped into somebody that I used to work with at LBI. I'm not sure if you ever worked with him. And we're in Brighton on the street and he was like, because I like him. I think he's very clever and I enjoyed working. There's lots of people at LBI I enjoyed working with. He's a bit older than me.
Me too.
And he said, he goes, hi, Vanco, I was talking about you the other day. With somebody else we'd worked with. I was like, oh yeah, were you telling each other how lovely I am? And he was like, no. we were sitting there going, oh, if only Vanco was here to tell the client they're wrong.
Well, I think that's the other. I think people are really grateful for the person that will say it like it is, because then, you know, it's like, right, that person's going to take the brunt of the, you know, the immediate kind of emotional reaction to it, but now I don't have to. But yeah, I think people are also grateful for someone that isn't afraid to
I think that's definitely true. But I also think that one of the things of, personally, I've never really set out to tell a client they're wrong. I'm like, you're paying me to use my eyes and ears and brain, and my eyes and ears and brain are telling me that this is what I'm seeing. I'm not sure if it's the same thing that you're seeing. So where you might be seeing success, I'm seeing failure, or where you're seeing an opportunity, I'm seeing a problem. Let's not call it an opportunity. Let's call it a problem. That kind of. I think it's interesting, and I think we've got a lot to learn in talking, because I've been thinking a lot about Stuart's email that he sent to us after media and telling us that we've taken completely the wrong approach and we're just offending everybody. And I'm like, I've thought about him a lot this week, in the context of that Brexit conversation, in the context, and that story that you're just saying. It's like, if you don't agree with people, you're going to tell them they're wrong. The worst thing you can do is offend them, because, everybody's going to get defensive. But if you can deliver a hard message with maybe we should talk to some doctors about how they tell people that, they need to change their lifestyle or lose weight. I don't know what the answer, but it is a fascinating thing, and learning how to deliver those sort of messages is a skill.
Well, and now that I've seen it done like that, is like
something to work on.
Trying to kind of put it into effect a little bit and try and learn how to. Yeah, I think for me, just putting the project above all else was my mistake.
I don't know though, because, for example, when you said that and you were talking about the people, I thought, well, the projects I've done in social care, I can't put the needs of yes, I've got to be respectful of the people I'm talking to, but ultimately the people who are the ultimate recipients of social care are the people we need to care about, and therefore it's the project. It is the project.
Well, it's
always
the people that are receiving it's the users as much. It's not just the client I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people.
I suppose.
Yeah, so like a project is just a means to an end, a means to improve the people involved's lives, whether that's the client or the recipient of the social care or whatever it is. But it's just a project is just an abstract thing, and so why am I kind of beholden to that when I should be always just like everything should be more in terms of what the people are getting out of it and what the world's going to get out of it. So
this is not something you would consider to be your talent.
Well, no, I think I saw someone taking something that I have as a talent that I've always shied away from, but sort of comes out clumsily. I saw what that's like when it's wielded, when it's kind of controlled.
I see.
When it's employed deliberately, right?
But also loved. I mean, the thing about you see your ability to see problems and criticise, you see that as a negative. It's not.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. So
I see. Sorry, I wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get across.
I wasn't following you properly. It's 25 years since the death of a Croat/Yugoslav but Croatian basketball player called Dražen Petrovic, who is a supremely talented basketball player, made it to the NBA and tragically died in a car accident. But one of the quotes from him was, "I believed in talent till I was 16, and after that I adopted hard work." And it's like from then on, it's all been about hard work. And he was super, super talented. One of the, I thought that was a nice, timely quote, because I also in the past read that, it was again Malcolm Gladwell, but he talked about that 10,000 hour thing where,
exactly.
Talent is one thing, but working at it. And he cites like the Beatles, who were an amazing band, but they'd spent hours and hours and hours playing together in Germany, gigging live, until they were just a supremely well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
So talent only gets you so far.
Yeah, and also people kind of misidentify talent. So, for example, a lot of the, like football players, like American football players, all were kind of like, if you looked at what time of year they were born, it tended to be sort of earlier in the school year, which meant that they were just bigger than the other kids sooner.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone sort of was like, oh, this guy's a really talented football player. But it's just, it's just born a little bit earlier.
No, it's just the difference between 3.5 and 3 and 8 months is actually quite significant. So,
for kids.
Yeah,
And that always gave me a bit of a weird thing because I'm born in like June, which means I'm right. I was always the small at school because
You're
I
the
was one of the
youngest.
last born, but that kind of gives you a kind of like weird perspective on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's something we don't think about. And yeah, sort of sports-wise, I guess it was a reason that I probably didn't sort of get super involved in any of that because I just was always a bit small.
Yeah, well, so I'm a September kid, so therefore I
Right.
was one of the fastest in class and one of the biggest and strongest, and because I was a year older than you, not, you know, if we'd have been the equivalent of you. I think you can have a predisposition to something, or what you've just been talking about, you know, you have this sort of predisposed interest in something. But I don't know that then unless it's nurtured and you work at, it will never become your skill.
Yeah, and the fact that like this talent is maybe misidentified, they can still be great sportsmen because they put all that time, they've been kind of picked out, and now they're putting all those hours in, and now they get good. But like probably if you picked one of the younger ones, maybe like they would be just as good. But it's a bit arbitrary. So, but that sort of identifying of your talents is. I wonder, like, some things it's easy. Like, for me, it's like I can pick up an arbitrary musical instrument and pretty quickly get a nice sound out of it, which isn't something everyone can do, right? So that's why I'm like, okay, well, music's important to me. I've got to kind of work on this. And then, like, I guess computers, I've always, you know, I've kind of understood what's going on, I suppose. Or maybe just because I started really young. It just got baked into me from a young age.
I don't know. So one of the interesting things to me is this, now that I've got this child to experiment on or to observe. So I'm sure I've told this story that, you know, on there's a little WhatsApp group of mums, and 2 of them are artists, and they shared pictures that their children had drawn, very little, 2 and a bit, with what looked like a recognisable face. Now, my daughter doesn't do that at all and has yet to produce something that looks like a recognisable face. But I don't draw with her. And she does all these squiggles that look like letters, and she can pick out the first letter of her name on it. Look, Mummy, there's my letter. There's Uncle Tommy's letter. There she knows. And she sits there and pretends to type on a computer. I'm working, Mummy. But maybe she would be really good at drawing if that's what I had made her more interested in. She did a really clever thing, though, I think. I'm just going to boast for a moment. So we're in Croatia, and we've got no telly. And I let her watch a couple of things on my laptop, but literally a couple. Well, one evening, and that was it. We were FaceTiming her granddad. She was like, Granddad, can you put your telly on, please, so I can watch it? Which I thought was a really brilliant bit of problem solving. It's like, you know, how am I going to get to watch TV? I know, I'm going to FaceTime Grandad and he can put his telly on. So, so I think she does have a bit of a talent towards, you know, like that sort of problem solving. But I do that with her. She goes, Mummy, what does this do? I don't know. Let's switch it on and let's see what it does. So I don't just tell her. So she has to work it out for herself. So I think that then, you know, that's something that I have inadvertently stimulated in her is this, if this happens, then that happens type thing.
And it could be something that my mother did nurture in me when I was like, before I was 5. Like she used to, apparently we used to sing and she used to play the guitar and, you know, I'd touch that. And both my grandfathers had like beautiful grand pianos in their houses. So I'd always have something to kind of hammer on. So it's not necessarily some innate talent. It could just be, I was exposed to that stuff early, you know? Apparently I stopped singing when she died. And then I didn't really start singing again until my sort of late 20s. So that's a shame. So I'm not very good at singing.
Well, I think that it's quite a natural reaction, surely, if that was something you did together.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just must have got.
Oh.
Yeah, anyway.
That's a sad bit.
Yeah, that's a sad bit. I'd say, like talent. So talent isn't the same as skill. And I was thinking in the same way that ideas aren't products. Like ideas are cheap. Talent is cheap.
Yeah.
It's that kind of development of it that's really kind of sets you apart. You can't just go, oh, I'm talented, I'm not going to do much work.
Yeah. You got to work. I do these training courses and these, you know, I teach more now, and it's like, I'm sorry, there's no magic wand. There's nothing clever that I can tell you that you can walk away with that isn't going to involve just doing this thing over and over and over again until you get good at it and you make some mistakes and you look at them. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the only way.
It's the only way.
Graft.
I recommended somebody I've recommended this person a lot over the years. He was a guy that taught. I happened to go on a presentation training course, and there was me and one other person, and this guy was running it, and it should have been like 8 people, but it was just 2 of us. So we got basically a day of kind of one-to-one-ish with this communications guy. And over the years, I've recommended him to many people. And the thing that, I recommended him to somebody recently, and she messaged me to say, I love him. I was really impressed. And it's just, he's a person who apparently started in theatre, but then he had a child who has autism. And so he's really studied how humans communicate with each other. So he's a fascinating person to present in front of, and then he gives you feedback and he tells you, and, he did things like, over the years I've been to sort of standard training courses that tell you not to wave your arms around when you're presenting. And he was like, no, that's how you talk. If I told you not to do that, you'd be really uncomfortable and you wouldn't be able to express yourself properly. So no, but don't fidget and, don't move your feet. If you're going to wave your hands around, stand still. That kind of like basic thing. But it was just a really, it's nice to meet somebody who's really studied their craft and knows. I'm sure we've spoken about this before. It's that thing where once you really know something and you're skillful at it, breaking it, knowing which. We talked about it in the context of that video. Just being really good at something gives you the skills to know when not to do it. The official way. Yeah.
So, like when people perceive you as having a certain talent, that gives you a certain amount of responsibility to develop it. So I think people will be upset if they see you as gifted. Yeah. Then if you're not kind of like working on that thing that they feel like they haven't got, but you have, and maybe you're like quite unique in having that particular ability, that like you do then have a responsibility to work on it and keep doing it. Because, otherwise it's like, well, what the hell?
Yeah. You're throwing away your talent. I think not living up to your potential is what upsets people. Because my big thing that we got told as children all the time, my dad used to be all about thinking. Like the worst crime you could commit in our house is not to have thought about something properly. It's like, and my dad, a lot of people who've worked with me know this quote, but it's like, fuck, sorry, think. If you ever went, oh, sorry, Daddy, I didn't mean to do that. Fuck, sorry. And I never get upset by people who, aren't as clever, or it sounds arrogant, I don't know. Anyway, like you meet people who are not super quick at thinking and haven't had loads of education, and I never get upset by them having done something inadvertently thoughtless. It's when people are really clever and have had all the opportunity and then do something stupid that really irritates me. And I think that's the same thing you're talking about. It's that sort of not living up to your potential. You are clever enough, you've had enough opportunity to understand that what you are doing is wrong, and therefore I don't give you any sympathy. I don't forgive you for being just blatant. That's possibly a bit extreme, but I think it's in the same vein of.
But I think there is, and I think that's how that sort of social pressure comes out as well. It's like you are. You've got these gifts, you've got these advantages. If you just ignore them, then, fuck you, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fair thing for people to say to you, I think.
But I suppose it is. It's that, like, you could have been a footballer, you could have. I suppose you have a right as well to say, I could have, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe to be a bit more Buddha about it would be healthier for me.
Maybe.
It's like, okay.
Maybe me too. Have you seen Exit Through the Gift Shop? I'm sure you have. Banksy's film.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, Mr. Brainwash is this sort of like artist character. Sort of. It was sort of like a faux documentary thing about this artist. He was just everything he did was really just obvious and just sort of like a. But I mean, the conclusion, it's annoying you haven't seen it actually. It's harder to talk about. But if you've seen it, like at the end, it's got like Banksy kind of in, sort of in disguise or whatever. He's one of Massive Attack, by the way. Can't remember which one, but we figured it out. He says, I used to think that everyone should try and be an artist or do stuff artistically, but then after this, I think maybe some people shouldn't bother. Maybe not everyone should be an artist. That sort of lack of talent, how does that kind of factor in? If someone's like trying to do something, but they just don't seem to
get it,
be capable of it, but they're still, for whatever reason, they're kind of told that they can, or they just, I don't know, can't see that it's not working. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that is weird. I don't know about that. Because that kind of flies in the face of this whole, if you work hard, you can become good at things. It's obviously not enough.
So sometimes you've just got to kind of accept your limitations and just, And that's certainly something as one approaches 40, one has to think about.
You're no longer approaching.
Yeah. No, I was saying, like, as I was. I know I'm 40, Ivanka. If anyone knows I'm 40... this guy.
If anyone doesn't know, Michael is 40 now. Actually
I'm old
40. Now. Don't worry, you'll always be not as old as me.
No, well, it doesn't. We're the same age now.
Are we? Oh,
I've caught up. So I think genius is an overused word. I know even Steve Jobs didn't like the Genius Bar name, the Apple thing, but like it's been so overused that you then get people going, this person is a super genius, or like they're having to kind of come up with more ridiculous terms to kind of say it. But there's a really good TED talk by Elizabeth Gilbert about the nature of genius and how in the old days genius was an outside thing. It was like a genie kind of thing that came through you and you just kind of accepted what it gave you. Okay. And you were just kind of like a vessel through which something external was acting. And that's always been how humans have seen that sort of creativity until recent history, where now an individual is a genius rather than having a genius that comes through them sometimes. And that places a lot of pressure, unreasonable pressure on people. And you get a lot of suicidal artists, and you get a lot of people kind of being labelled with something that is just not really fair to label anyone. So I guess this is, just my campaign for people to stop using that. If we could detach that from the individual, I think that would be a good thing to do, because it's not really fair.
I think that's quite interesting, because I like the fact that sort of a thing is genius. Because I often go, that's a genius idea. I don't tend to say you're a genius because you had the idea. Do you know?
Yeah, and even when something can come to you, and you can go, oh, wow, that you can recognise it. Yeah. But there's no reason to label yourself.
Yeah. That moment of divine inspiration.
It's where you just don't know where it really came from. Like the person that it came to is no more aware of where it came from than someone who's not that person.
I like it. I think it suits our general conversations about, sort of working, in multidisciplinary teams in different ways. All this, it's a set of circumstances that allows genius to be created, not necessarily all right, enter the genius, enlighten us all.
Exactly.
It's a lot. No wonder we get so much arrogance. I like it. Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on, Michael, because my battery's down to 1%.
Okay, right. Yeah, nobody. Yeah. So in conclusion, nobody is a genius.
Nobody is a genius.
Thank you for listening to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com and you can find all of our social media and all those links, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. All the episodes are on YouTube. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
The best place to find me is @Ivanka on Twitter.
Yes. In a sea of anti-Ivanka Trump sentiment.
Exactly.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com mostly, and I have social everything on everything.
So, and if you are minded to, it would be marvellous if you could write us a review on that Apple Podcasts thing and tell your friends to have a listen. We appreciate especially people like Beth Bell, who like to tell all their friends to listen to us.
Yes. Thank you, Beth Bell. I did see your message and it was good. I did like your idea of entertainment as a topic. I think we should do it. And also, we do have plans for guests, and that's going to happen. But we will also reply to the message. Is that everything?
Yeah.
That's all our shopping stuff. Hey, imagine if we had a Patreon or some sponsors. Imagine that.
Imagine.
All right. Well, thanks very much, then, guys.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.